Oh, okay. And I want to get into this a bit. So, in America specifically, how do you feel that maybe certain groups of people or ethnic groups or religions, how does this? Because I feel like when we talk about systemic issues and things that have been going on for so long, it's really hard to make it tangible and for
Mm-hmm.
people to really understand what it is. So how does that take place? I mean, I feel like this is a very general question, but how does that take place today, would you say?
You know, obviously, I am, an undergrad, and I am a first year undergrad. So, I don't claim to know anything at all about any of these academic disciplines. And I really want to take this opportunity to sort of like humble myself and understand that I am really, I have a long way to go and a lot of knowledge to acquire. So I can't necessarily speak to those specifically, but there's a lot of like really interesting things that I have learned this year about intersections of poverty, racism, and militarism, and how like all those things um, like create intersections of oppression and really kind of play into the other, which has been really really fascinating. Like learning about the military industrial complex and its ties to slavery, and all that type of stuff has been like really mind blowing. Um, so that has been um, uh, really fascinating, but um, I can't really speak to that with full like confidence. Yeah.
No, yeah, I understand. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with a French philosopher. His name is Michael Foucault.
Oh my god! This brings to mind. One of my friends brought up the Foucaultian rug the other day. But no, I don't really know much except for my friend who's really into philosophy brought him up. I do not.
Okay, Foucault has this book. It's called Discipline and Punishment, and it just talks about it's focused on like the prison system and how we as humans have like justified putting people in prison and like the transgression it took in France specifically. But
Mm-hmm.
he also talks about how we structure power in society,
Mm-hmm.
and he claims that because he's somewhat of a historian, he claims throughout history that we have like always a greater group has been able to marginalize another group for their own profit, not for their own
Mm-hmm.
profit, but for their own benefit. That took
Mm-hmm.
place, and he talks about this specifically in the context of when France was moving from an agrarian society to more of an industrial um, economy,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like the same time that Jane Austen was around, and there's this like the women's right movement, and then Simone de Beauvoir comes in, and then it just escalates. But do you think? I mean, uh, considering like what you're studying, again, I know, yeah, it's limited to some extent, but from your own experience, do you think that's true throughout history that we've always needed to suppress a certain group?
Um. Yes and no. Um. I feel that that there's several examples of that historically. Um, but a lot of the ways in which we oppress others has to do with how we choose to structure society. Um, and so recognizing that, every systemic barrier, every pervasive, sometimes more less kind of obvious but still like really pervasive barrier that we put in people's way, and people's in their way of um, having access to meritocracy, or having access to society fully. It is a result of the way in which we choose to um, structure society, and like the power dynamics, we have within that. So I I do think that it's true that throughout history there's been several examples of um, certain groups of people oppressing others. The optimist within me likes to think that that doesn't necessarily need to be the case in the future, um, but maybe that's too idealistic.
No, but I like that idea. It's a good way of thinking.